As I said in the previous uh, video, the this area 7, is a catch-all for the stuff that we spend a lot of our time doing as ministers in the church. And again, a lot of this stuff you have opportunities to take classes in, or you've already taken classes in. Larry Hitt's class on canon law and church polity. You'll have classes available for pastoral care, and all of those kinds of things. The history of the orders of ministry, bishop, priest, and deacon, lay. Those are spelled out in the catechism of the in the prayer book, and we end up talking about them a lot. They show up in canon law, how all of these things are supposed to happen. We see them acted out in worship when we see bishops and priests and deacons as they exercise their public ministry in the context of the liturgy. So a lot of these things are out there all the time. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them. Part of the reason is that there's not a whole lot to add to that other than our job is to figure out how to put them all together as we move through our ministry. But I want to spend just a few minutes talking about one area, pastoral care, and then there's a podcast, an interview that I'll make some comments about that I'd like you to listen to. That's a little longer than my 7-minute spinets, and then we'll get to the assignment. But pastoral care, I get asked this question all the time because I work on a university campus that has a counseling center as well as a graduate school of professional psychology about what is it that I do. And I have to tell people all the time, I'm very upfront about this, that I don't have a degree in counseling. That's not my training. I took my requisite pastoral care classes in seminary, and I've done my clinical pastoral education, my CPE. So I've had that sort of basic stuff, but I know the limits of my expertise, and I'm not a counselor. And I tell students and anybody else who comes into my office that if I sense that we're getting beyond my depth, I will be happy to walk with them down to the counseling center, because that's not what I do. So we need to be very clear about what we're experienced at and what we're not experienced at, and where to draw those boundaries. That's one of the things that, if you haven't already had experience educationally doing, whether it's in CPE or pastoral care, you need to be apprised of. Similarly, I was in a guest speaker in a graduate school of professional psychology class a few weeks ago with Edward Antonio was the other one. And the question came up from these doctoral students in psychology about confidentiality, the seal of the confessional, all of those kinds of things. And right now, this is a really, really thorny question. Who are mandated reporters, and for questions of abuse or things like that. And each diocese may spin this out differently depending on the advice of its chancellor, and states may vary. So I'm not going to try and make any blanket pronouncements on that. I know that in this Diocese of Colorado, we are going to have a conversation with, I think, the DA of Denver, maybe Attorney General, but I know with the DA, the clergy are, along with Larry Hitt, so that we know where where the seal of the confessional stops. And what I told the folks in the professional psychology school is that if somebody came to me and they were going to express, tell me that they had done something bad or they were thinking about doing something bad, I would respect the seal of the confessional, but I would tell them that they better do something about it if they want to have solution. There's a fine line, and I think we all need to figure out how to walk that line. It's going to be different for all of us, and different demands. So I want to just throw that out, and again, you'll probably hear more about this, or you have heard more about this in various classes. I've added some resources down below, though, that talk about the difference between pastoral care and counseling. And then the third one, which is called A Guide to Spiritual Direction, has a wonderful chart that has all three, pastoral care, counseling, and spiritual direction, and what are their purposes and what are their tools and all of those kinds of things. The biggest difference is that counseling is really what you do in your office, talking with somebody. Whereas pastoral care, you have many more tools available. You've got liturgy, you've got sacrament of reconciliation, sacrament of healing. You've got the ability to look at things in ways that a counselor is not going to do. And so I commend those documents to you. So if you haven't already had a class in counseling or pastoral care, you'll at least get some idea of where those things fall out. And then there's a fourth document, a link there to a web page at a Lutheran seminary in Texas, a Missouri Synod, but it talks about pastoral care in the liturgy. And I think that we sometimes forget how much pastoral care can be done in the context of liturgy, and not just those pastoral care type liturgies like reconciliation or healing. But the funeral liturgy is full of pastoral care moments just by itself, as is all of the other liturgies in certain ways. And so this website here does a good job of sort of talking about liturgy and pastoral care and how we might think about those things together. So I commend all of those links that are down below this video to you. Three of them will point you to another website. The fourth one, which is the Guide to Spiritual Direction, is a Word doc, and it'll download, and you can print it off and or save it and read it at your leisure.